Welcome to episode 284 of Dynasty Theory. We are doing our pre-mock draft episode. This is one we've done for the last, 5 or 6 years at this point. It's one of my favorite episodes we have. But this time we are going to use landing spots. This is the first time we're doing it. I think it really helps with the flow of things. So we will have the link in the description, but it's for Chad Reuter's mock draft that dropped on the NFL.com website a few days ago. My favorite thing about it is it's not just perfect landing spots. They're landing spots you're going to see that you will hate. But to me, that's a lot like what the NFL draft is. It's one of those things too where we want to love every spot. The fact is it doesn't happen that way. So having a mock draft like this that has spots you're going to be like, "Oh, I hate where this person's going." Odds are we're going to see a lot of those things happen in the NFL draft. But I'm joined by Dan. I have a question. This is going to be your first mock draft so far this offseason. John and I, we've done 1, 2, or 10. I don't know. How are you feeling going into this? Do you have a really good idea on what you're liking? Or are you kind of waiting to see how the draft plays out? So like your second round might change depending on how we draft in that first round.
Yeah, I mean, based on this draft that we're doing tonight, and I see where these guys' landing spots are, it was a good practice in comparing against my draft rankings. I'm thinking, how much does this change, and how much is this spot on? And boys, how much do I just not care because I have strong feelings about certain players here? So I love how we're going to get into that tonight, and it was a good practice in comparing to my rankings. Where this draft ended up, I love how you said that, Mitch. It's a good practice in real life because there's going to be some guys we're going to be fired up about. JB's glasses are going to be fogging up on draft day. He's going to be fired up. A couple guys didn't go where he expected. I know it.
Yep. So, John, this mock draft is a little bit different. We'll get into all the players here shortly. Did it affect your rankings at all seeing these landing spots? Are you willing to move off of your priors? Because we are acting like this is how the actual NFL draft goes. We don't care. We're not going to be like, oh, hey, we don't think this player should have gone there. We're going to draft this. This is how it's going to be. How much did that change how your draft prep went?
Not so much landing spot, but there are a few that the draft capital is significantly different than my current expectation. And if you go over on NFL mock draft database and you run through that, there are some pretty big discrepancies here between what Chad put together and ultimately what I think is going to play out. But like Mitch said, everyone, we are doing this as if it happened. And I know a lot of folks that, hey, not really a huge fan of the mock drafts based on NFL mock drafts, but it's just another piece of the puzzle. Like we always talk about the landing spots, the draft capital. So ultimately, how much are things going to change when it gets down to it? And we can all say, oh, we don't care about landing spots. We don't really care about draft capital. Well, gun to head, I can tell you a lot of people, we'll see how much conviction they really have. And we'll see how much conviction the three of us have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it definitely changed my aspect on some players. There's some players that I liked. One of them's not even drafted. I'm like, well, that creates an issue if he's not going. And this is a 4-round mock draft. We are doing 3 rounds, as you can see on the screen. It's going to be a 12-team start 10 superflex PPR. 0.75 tight end premium, just enough of the premium that it doesn't hurt the tight ends. It doesn't boost them up to a super over everybody else. I think it's a really fair league setting to look at this going into next month's draft. So let's talk about the players that were drafted before we get into this. So in the first round, we had Cam Ward going to the Titans, Shedeur Sanders going to the Giants, Travis Hunter going to the Patriots, Ashton Genty going to the Raiders, Jackson Dart to the Jets, even though they have Justin Fields. That's like this is your first hint on how this mock draft's going to go. Tyler Warren to the Broncos, Colston Loveland to the Colts, Toria McMillan to the Seahawks, Emeka Buka to the Cowboys. They traded back for anyone who's wondering kind of how that went. Omarion Hampton to the Steelers, Matthew Golden to the Packers, Isaiah Bond to the Rams. So, Dan, just going through that first round real quick, is there anything that really stands out to you as far as who was drafted here in this mock draft?
This may sound like the easy layup answer, and I I have mixed feelings, but boy, I'm not too surprised. Like, could this be a strategy of the National Football League when you're trying to figure out your quarterback situation and you see Jackson Dart go to 107, and maybe the people in the chat tonight or those that listen after and be like, heck no, there's no way that's going to happen. And they might be a little fired up like JB gets fired up sometimes. But we look back to a year ago with the Falcons and we were ridiculing, their move of Michael Penix and how much they spent on Cousins. And man, in hindsight, Cousins didn't perform. Yeah, they shouldn't have paid Cousins as much as they did, but it wasn't a bad idea drafting Penix. So I think here with the Jets, we've talked about it last episode. I know I'm personally not a Fields believer. There are some people that like Jackson Dart. Mel Kiper was big on him out of the gates. There's part of me that wouldn't be that shocked if he went earlier than anticipated because the teams are really desperate to find their quarterback. So that was a big surprise, Mitch, but it just got me thinking strategy of, hey, what if this happens?
Yep, without a doubt. Okay, going the second round. We got Burden going to the Titans. We got Mason Taylor to the Bears. Travion Henderson to the Cowboys. Love that spot. Jalen Knoll to the Cardinals. Quinn Ewers to the Seahawks. Hate it. Quinshon Judkins to the Chargers. Another good spot. Jaden Higgins to the Panthers. Mr. 4.88 we found out today. Restrepo to the Bills. And Jaden Blue to the Eagles in the second round. That was the most surprising one for me. John, second round, we have some of those running backs getting huge landing spots that we're going to love. Is that just solidify where they're going to go with you in this mock draft?
It does. And the fact that it was Quinshon Judkins to the Chargers, Henderson to the Cowboys, and obviously you see the first round draft capital going back to Amarian Hampton and obviously Ashton Genty, that it solidifies those top 4 running backs, but it might push some talent down folks' draft boards. And there's a few things in there. One, at this point in time, I highly doubt Xavier Restrepo gets second round draft capital. Back to the first round, I don't understand how people are still mocking Isaiah Bond in the first round of the NFL draft. I don't want to criticize the landing spots too much. And we're doing it as if this actually happens, but I can't see it. And then, we talk about the running back landing spots in the second round. Fantastic. The Jaden Blue situation.
Don't give too much away yet.
I know.
Not too much.
I'm just saying, I think that makes him one of the most intriguing options behind Barkley, but second round draft capital, high end handcuff. I won't say anything else. I don't want to spoil it for everybody, like Mitch would say.
We'll roll through third round and fourth round. We'll get to drafting just to make it fun, but we're going to make sure that anyone who's listening on the podcast feed actually knows the players and where they went to. Caleb Johnson, Browns. Jalen Milroe to the Raiders. Trey Harris to the Patriots. Jack Beck to the Jets. Travis Etienne to the Patriots. Elijah Arroyo to the Dolphins. Terrence Ferguson to the Seahawks.
Oh, Mitch, and I even proofread for you.
I know. I just get past it, but it's all good.
Trevor Etienne.
Yeah, it happened.
I take the blame on that one, man.
Yeah, I did. I asked you for help because I knew it would happen. Okay, Tyler Schutt to the Steelers. Savion Williams, my guy, goes in the third round to the Texans. Tez Johnson to the Browns, Gadsden to the Rams. We got Dylan Sampson to the 49ers, and Jalen Royal to the Lions in the third round. Now, to sum up the fourth round before we move on to drafting, we got Kyle McCord to the Browns, Alec Iomanner to the Giants, Harold Fannin Jr. to the Jags, Mitchell Evans to the Vikings, RJ Harvey to the Saints, Thornton to the 49ers, Dylan Gabriel to the Dolphins. Scattaboo gets the awesome Broncos landing spot. Jalen Lane to the Chargers, Ty Felton to the Jags, Isaiah Nair to the Saints, and then to sum it all up, another great landing spot, we got Tootin to the Chiefs. Just an absolute awesome place to go. All right, John. I think how we're going to do this, we're going to go Dan first, then me, then John. You know what? Just to make it a little bit easier, bam, we'll do that. So we'll go in the order that we are on the screen. So Dan, every single mock draft we have done on this channel, one player's gone and picked overall. Let you have it.
All right, man. I got my war room all full of computer screens in my office ready to track this draft. And one for me at this point would be probably like all your others is Ashton Genty. I just think he's a tier above his position. Not that I am against the quarterback strategy there, but Genty's the way to go.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, it sums it up. I'm just going to hurry through this one quick. The first two picks are the exact same, I think, for a lot of people. I'm going to Murray and Hampton. He got picked here, the Steelers, in the first round. Great capital, just like we know, to a good landing spot. He's going to get a lot of work there. There's not a whole lot to say about the first two picks. I told John I want him to have the 103 because it's the pick that I don't really want to have in the draft.
And I'm doing it. I'm tipping my hand here. You can see, and no, it's not Donovan Edwards that I'm taking. Maybe that's the curveball of the draft, gentlemen. But no, I'm going to go Cam Ward. There's been nothing throughout this process up to this point that has shown that he's not the top quarterback off the board here come April. And, with the format, leaning into it, obviously, with it being super flex, and going to the Titans with the first overall pick, you have to believe that Callahan puts him in a situation to succeed. And I don't want to get into it too much here because obviously he's still on the board. But with Shedeur Sanders, I have more faith that the Titans coaching staff is going to remain intact than the Giants, at least for one more year. And we all know that even though one regime may feel comfortable investing in one quarterback, maybe they don't see it that way with the following regime. So I just alluded to that because Shedeur Sanders in this draft goes third overall to the Giants. But anyway, Cam Ward, third overall for me. Dan, over to you. And boys, we got to rattle through this if we're getting through 3 rounds.
Well, we'll be fine. John, you just talked for like a solid minute. Did you tell us to hurry up? But Dan,
that wasn't a minute. That wasn't a minute.
Dan, I have a question.
Yes.
Do you believe in the Shedeur Sanders negative talk that's out there right now? Do you think NFL teams are actually buying into that? Or is that just draft cycle hoopla that we go through every year with a prospect?
I agree with Coach Prime, who put it out there on social media of that negative talk is people want you and they want you to slide. And I just think this kid's meant for the moment, man. There's enough game film and good production out of him. He's taken hits, he's made throws, the accuracy's there. So I like Sanders, and that would be my pick here at number 4. And it's for the reasons of, hey, I like the way 1 through 3 went. Genty and Hampton, you got a combination of good landing spots and teams investing. They're showing where their money and their investment of a first-round pick is on a running back. When you get a first-round pick on a running back, they expect that guy to be successful. So I love the running back picks, but it's super flex like we talked about. And, now I want to get that last quarterback that I think is a sure thing on this board. I get JB's point there of some uncertainty of the Giants coaching staff, but I think that ownership, no matter what that coaching staff does this year, Sanders is going to be their guy for years to come.
All right. No, I think that's more than fair. And for me, I actually have someone else written down in this spot for me, but I know if I'm on the clock, I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to go Travion Henderson here, going in the second round to the Cowboys. It is going to be so hard for me to not boost him up even to the 103 if that's the landing spot. I know it's second round, not first round. That's fine, but this draft is just, it's not lacking in skill players. It's lacking in the elite guys that I have a lot of faith in. But I have a lot of faith in whoever that Cowboys running back is, because Dan, you've talked about it a lot. That offensive line is going to be improved. That whole team is going to go with the rush first approach that we haven't seen in a while.
And full disclosure, if we were in this draft together in real life and Dynasty, right at that point, I'd be mortgaging my house to Mitch, trying to get Hampton, Henderson back off him because he's a Cowboy. So good job, Mitch. Way to snake me.
I like it. John?
All right. At number 6, I am.
Is the tight end premium messing you up at all?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. My baseline when I go through, obviously, my cross-positional tiers and my rookie rankings, it's because we play in a ton of leagues. I know a lot of people are turned off by it, but a lot of leagues that are 2 PPR for tight ends. Not an additional 2 points for the listeners, but 2 points total. And I know that a lot of people, that's too much. I don't like it. And fair, more than fair. But that's kind of my baseline when going through this. So the tight end's still not on my radar here. The Quinshon Judkins to the Chargers in the second round landing spot. I think it presents an opportunity because obviously we know the way that the Chargers want to play. We know that a lot of people are going to buy into that hype that goes around a running back to that situation. I know Najee Harris is there. And I know we talked about this on a previous episode of Dynasty Theory, Mitch, where Najee Harris is a good enough back to keep an incoming rookie off of the field. But ultimately, this is going to be Quinshon Judkins' backfield. It might not be immediately, and I don't expect it to be, but in the second round of the Chargers, that's somebody that, I think if this were to play out this way, and we're pretending like it is, he might slip a little bit just because there is that uncertainty with immediate production if this comes to fruition. But I'm still buying into that situation and, obviously beyond 2025.
Dan, I'm very interested to see where you go here. I have a guy that I would have locked in, 100% locked in, but I don't know. I haven't done a mock draft with you. I'm really wondering where you're going to go here.
My vibe is where we're locked in together. And JB's pick there would be the one time in the draft where maybe I'd throw the challenge flag, or like, I get it. He would definitely be one of the guys I would be thinking about at 106 when JB was up, or maybe I'd be thinking about at 107 here. But, Najee Harris is there. And I think we hit a tier break. I love drafting in tiers for our DD fantasy football subscribers. I know John's, your guys' tiers are up there, and it's a great tool to go by. And if I'm looking at tiers right now, I want that premium tight end before I get that 1B running back. So at 1.75 premium, that's enough for me to say, hey, Tyler Warren's my guy here right now in Denver. He's clear-cut tight end there, and he's just in a tier above the other guys.
Do you have him a full tier above Loveland? Because that's been a lot of talk lately. I'm a Loveland guy. I have been for a couple of years. Do you think Warren is just that much better as a pass catcher over Loveland, even though, Loveland's spot was to where it was?
I see Tyler Warren more like a George Kittle, where he's not going to come off the field because he can block and receive. I worry about Loveland coming off the field sometimes because he's got a little more lankier frame, where we got to see how he holds up in blocking. I think his effort's there. I think he's going to be a good fantasy football player. But I really am hesitant to always drafting tight ends, because we just see this year and year and year over and over. Unless they're like the elite dude, they just always seem to miss our expectations. So like Loveland, don't love them. There is a tier break there, Mitch.
Okay. No, that's fair. For me, there's times to where you're doing a rookie draft and you're like, you know what, this pick's on the block, and you'll sit on it for 2 hours because you really don't want to make the pick and you're hoping. I'm not. This is one within 3 seconds of being on. I'm picking McMillan, and I'm more than happy. I'm like, okay, got my guy at 108, got the tight end or the wide receiver 1. And for anyone who doesn't remember, he went to the Seahawks at pick 18 in the first round. Kupp being there doesn't worry me at all. I think Kupp is absolutely washed at this point. A little preview to the Trending Fantasy show that we're going to have dropping on Thursday. We'll have a little talk about Cooper Kupp on there. I have no faith in it. But McMillan is so good that I'm not worried about JSN stealing the whole market share. This is actually going to be really good for Darnold, and it will help me buy into Darnold if this is how the draft plays out.
Well, maybe this is a wide receiver run here. We have the 4 top running backs off the board. We have the 2 quarterbacks. Obviously Jackson Dart going 7th overall to the Jets would certainly put him on a lot of folks' radar just with the draft capital investment. But I'm going to go Emeka Egbuka, 20th overall to the Dallas Cowboys. Dan gets sniped again. Listen, this first round here, the way it's shaking out, especially with Henderson and Emeka Egbuka, it's a Dallas Cowboys fans' wet dream, if you will. All right. Don't want to get too Dynasty Theory after dark here, but you add a top tier pass catching option to pair with CeeDee Lamb, presumably moving CeeDee Lamb more outside. I know obviously he can work both inside and out, but then you get Igbokwe out of the slot. If there are troubles with that offensive line, we would think that Dak Prescott, time to throw, might come down a little bit, and a player like Emeka Igbokwe could really flourish there. So Igbokwe, 109. Sorry, Dan, you've been sniped twice now.
I went into tonight really excited and looking forward to seeing both you guys. And at this point in the show, I don't like either of you. So just, man, kill me. I really thought that was going to land right in my lap, JB. And hey, for our true Dynasty Theory listeners who've been with us a long time, JB is a closet Cowboy fan. Don't let him tell you any different as he steals my guy. But that puts me back on the clock. So I'm at a point in the draft where I get sniped. And this is where it gets really hard to me. Now is when like all that watching film and studying and it's got to start to kick in. And it's where I got to start questioning, okay, hey, just because a guy went in the first round, does that make him a dynasty first round asset or is it just good for football? Oh, this is painful. But I'm going to go with a bet on talent here. And I'm going to pretend, because you guys didn't say anything going into this show, that the New England Patriots said they drafted Hunter to play primary wide receiver. And I'm going to go with the bet on the talent versus those murky situations of those other guys. And I'm going to take Travis Hunter.
And
Absolutely.
Really quick,
that would be my pick if I was picking right now. So that, yeah.
And I all the comments I'm seeing come in, they're not falling on deaf ears. I want clarity, and we don't have it. And we're not going to have it. But if somebody came in and told me that, I see Billy saying, I see Josh saying, I thought there was one more comment about Travis Hunter. Like, I get it, without a doubt. Like, no argument for me. But I probably should put him up on the board here for Dan. Sure.
You probably should. So a big thing, and the funniest thing is if you guys watch a lot of mock drafts, you could go in the comments and it'll be the exact opposite. There will people going, hey, I can't draft him in the first round because he's a cornerback. I honestly think in the last mock draft that we did, that was the exact comments that we got was, no, he's a cornerback. You can't draft him in the first round. So it's one of those things that is so hard to figure out. I mean, for me, if he was a wide receiver, he's the wide receiver one without a doubt. But not knowing is a problem. But I do think we're going to get a lot of clarity by the time the draft happens or by the time our rookie drafts happen. Yeah, that one's tough. So it leaves to me, because that was going to be my pick. So I got to pivot. I'm going to go Colston Loveland here. To me, like I was saying when Dad took Warren, to me, he's just as good of a prospect. That Colts landing spot is very scary, but something we've talked about a lot about in the Dynasty, in the DD fantasy Discord is what I was trying to get to there. What we talk a lot about in there are landing spots and how these quarterbacks are going to benefit or hurt them. But a big thing with Anthony Richardson, even if you hate Anthony, he's probably not going to start the whole year because he can't stay healthy. And so odds are you're going to see Daniel Jones in there. And even if you don't like Daniel Jones, he does pepper tight ends a little bit. I played a lot of Theo Johnson last year, and Theo Johnson was a fine play. There was nothing wrong with doing that. So for me, that's where I like going there. But for anyone who's wondering, join the community. The reason for it is so when we're going through this, the easiest thing you could do is you could pull up John's tiers, and John has the rookies next to veteran players, next to the rookie pick, and you get that if you join the community. So make sure you use it. Use code Theory while you're doing it. But John, you're up next at 112. I'm wondering if you're going to take the wide receiver that received a lot of hate for a long time, but for me, he's the guy that I'm going with.
I can't pass on top 10 draft capital for a quarterback at this point in time. It's the Michael Penix conversation all over again, where he goes into a spot. There is a veteran there. They just brought him in. Obviously Kirk Cousins had the Achilles stuff. Justin Fields has the playing quarterback stuff. But we know that Justin Fields gives you that fantasy ceiling as long as he's playing. So that's not in question. But if they're spending a top 7 pick on a quarterback, he's going to get an opportunity unless somehow it goes down the Trey Lance path, but obviously injuries were a part of that as well. But here at the 112, give me Jackson Dart going to the Jets at pick 7.
And John, I think a huge thing when you compare him to Penix is turning 25 this year, or he's 25 already. Jackson Dart's 21. Or he turns 22 before the season. I mean, but he's so young
also,
that
Mitch,
it gives you some more time.
And Mitch, we've talked about it how many times where, like, look at Michael Penix's numbers at the end of last year.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't fantastic. I mean, again, but his value, he was going 201, 202, 203 in 12-team Superflex rookie drafts. And look at how elevated his price is because now he gets the opportunity. So really, if you're looking to invest in Jackson Dart or not, I think more or less it's a bet on Justin Fields and his belief that he can hold on to that starting job beyond, not just beyond 2025, but through 25.
Yeah, that's more than fair. Dan, you were yelling at me over my Penix take a couple weeks ago, but now most of the QBs are off the board. Where are you going here at the 201?
I have about 3 guys here that I'm looking at. We look at that early second round value where you still feel pretty confident about a player you're getting. And this one isn't easy, but I'm going to go with the last first round player that I think is worth going here. And that is Matthew Golden. He's a guy where, we look at that Packers situation and, I think it's easy to be scared away here too, because of how muddy that situation is. But there's this little part of me that's thinking, hey, if the Packers are taking this guy in the first round, hey, is that situation muddy in Green Bay because they just really don't have the guy? And maybe there's an opportunity to be the number one here. He's 40 times off the chart. He's producing at Texas. He's very young. I'm gonna roll the dice here and give myself some Matthew Golden and hope he becomes a wide receiver 1, first round draft capital. Last guy I think is worth taking with first round draft capital.
I want to love the landing spot because I think they need a wide receiver 1, but LaFleur came out and said that he doesn't believe that teams need wide receiver 1s. So I'm like, well,
that don't help.
That kind of ruins everything. All right.
But so I mean, he's saying that with a wide receiver core where their best weapon, they don't put on the field in Jaden Reed because if they run out of 12 personnel, he's on the sideline.
Yep. Yeah.
So I think Matthew Golden presents a nice opportunity there, and we know that Christian Watson can't stay healthy.
Unless they give him the Jaden Reed treatment, then Reed starts, and then Golden comes, he plays 40% of the snaps.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, it should be a frustrating situation. But put your young I mean, young in terms of the number of starts he's had, but put your young quarterback in Jordan Love in a situation to succeed. And by playing these wide receivers, that might be helpful.
Mm-hmm. For me, I'm going with a guy that I actually have in the first round. Caleb Johnson. He's going in the 3rd round to the Browns. That doesn't stop me at all from taking him in the early 2nd. He's an awesome running back who's going to go to a great spot to where there's really, who's his competition really? Dante Foreman. I don't even know if he's still under contract, right? There's nobody there.
Jerome Ford, my man, Jerome Ford.
Dude, I'm telling you, I lost so much money in DFS playing him because they didn't play him till like the 3rd quarter. I was pissed that week. But for me, Caleb Johnson just is in such a good spot there. So early 2nd for me, easy.
All right. Let's see. Looking at my board, and overall, we had 3 quarterbacks in the first 7 picks. 5 running backs with first or second round draft capital in this NFL mock draft. 5 first round wide receivers, the 2 tight ends. Like the first round, outside of the Loveland landing spot, I think you can tell yourself that story, and even beyond the first round, for dynasty purposes, like you can buy into this. So Matthew Golden off the board. Pairing with Cam Ward, I'm going to go Luther Burden. I know a lot of people are souring on him and seeing him as a gadget guy, but you're putting him in a situation where he is presumably going to be one of the top weapons for Cam Ward. Calvin Ridley's still there in Tennessee, but at 35th overall pick, going to the Titans. There was a lot that was left to be desired here in 2024 for Luther Burden. Had questionable quarterback play. He was going through some injuries, but he's been able to do it in the past, and I'm betting on that talent. So 203, you start to get into this lower risk range, but to be a possible number one option for an incoming first overall pick in Cam Ward, I'll go Luther Burden here.
Dan, how are you feeling being on the clock right here? Are you feel pretty comfortable with the rookies here, or is this the point where you're going to start to look at, hey, can I trade this pick for a veteran to help my team?
I'm not ready to trade yet. Well, probably when it comes back around to me, depending on who you guys take, I might start feeling that then and get a little bit more nervous. I liked your picks before. I was with Burden there. I think, hey, some guys are going to get pushed to the second round or third round based on the depth at certain positions. We knew one of those receivers, that are all batched together are kind of going close. I think there's still a good enough draft capital there where Burden went in this draft, where I think JB was good on it. And then when you look at that running back position, Mitch, I said when I picked Matthew Golden, I was between a few guys. Burden was on that list. Caleb Johnson was on that list. The next guy on my list that you guys left for me, I guess, would be Trevor Etienne. I think this running back class is so deep, and him going middle of the third round, if Stevenson doesn't fix that fumbling problem. I'm a Georgia fan, man. When he was healthy and clicking, this kid could run. There's some talent there. So you get a third round draft value, the running back position, which we need in Dynasty, in a pretty decent situation in New England. I'll take Etienne here.
John, your eyes are still wide from that pick.
Wasn't on my radar there.
He just went a little bit after Caleb Johnson in this NFL draft here.
I get it.
Right?
But one's good. That's the big difference.
I get it. Guys. But to your defense, he goes into a situation that, yes, they have Ramondre Stevenson, but I talked about it with the quarterbacks earlier. You have a brand new coaching staff coming in. How are they really going to see how this, wanting to see it play out? How are they going to view the situation? So if they're going with ETN in the third round,
that should favor him.
You're able to pair him with Ramondre. They might favor him. There's still a few other players on the board I prefer over ETN, but you know what? You're pushing some guys down for me, Dan, and for that I'm forever grateful.
I'm listening. I can't wait for this pick.
All right, well, that's good because I'm picking. I am going.
That's right.
I think there's a big tier here. I'm going Mason Taylor went to the Bears in the second round. To me, there's kind of the top three tight ends, and there's anyone else you could kind of talk yourself into. But I think these guys, they're all going to be very good in the NFL. Mason Taylor to the Bears. Who knows how they feel about Cole Kmet? Came on towards the end of the season. He was good. The season before, you don't know what the new coaching staff's going to bring. But if they're looking at Mason Taylor in the second round, you have to assume he's going to get a fair amount of playing time.
And I love Mason Taylor, guys. So Mitch, I think this pick's awesome here. My only thought was when I took ETN here, that's probably the one guy I would say, hey, okay, I'll put my challenge flag down for. It was just the Cole Kmet thing. I don't know why I still have this little hang up on Cole Kmet actually being good. I'm like, do they kind of cancel each other out a little bit for fantasy value and production that we need? I don't know. Is it a Caleb Williams things where he just DJ Moore? Last year was Keenan Allen. I think Rome will take a boost this year. So I was just a little worried for the fantasy production there, but I love the talent. I love Caleb Williams. That could be an awesome pick.
Yep. John, the board's getting pushed down to you. You were really happy.
Give me the big play machine paired with one of Mitch's favorite quarterbacks in Drake May. I know everybody's excited about Travis Hunter. If he goes to the Patriots, you see the comments and a lot of belief. And I tend to lean that way too, buying into the landing spots here dictated by the NFL mock draft, going to the Patriots. But I'm going to go Trey Harris going to the Patriots in the third round. We went through some injuries here in 2024, but especially against man coverage, And you have a quarterback that is starving for weapons. And Dan just took ETN. Hunter went off the board earlier. We're looking at a team that clearly in this draft is focused on setting their young quarterback up for success and looking to give him weapons he certainly did not have his rookie season. So Trey Harris, I'm going to take him at the 206.
JB I like Trey Harris a lot, and I don't think this is a bad landing spot in the third round, but do you question it a little bit, like the ceiling when like going in the third round versus being a second round wide receiver? I don't know if we've dug into any data of success rates of third round wide receivers, but that was the only thing that kind of bumped him down a couple spots for our draft here. He'd definitely be on my radar soon, but that third round value just kind of disappointed me a tad. I'd be disappointed on draft day if he went at that point a little bit.
I'd be very upset, honestly. But like Mitch talked about to kick off the show, there were some, once we get to this point in the draft, we're going to see some unsavory landing spots and or draft capital. So for this one, I'm betting into, from an analytical profile, just the numbers that he was able to put up and into an offense that they're looking to inject life into. But yes, there is a huge difference when you take, you start looking at top 40 draft capital for wide receivers, and then you're going into, I know Trey Harris, we said the third round here, but the 69th pick overall, so yeah, from a hit rate perspective, there is a difference. No doubt about it.
All right. So that was my issue. That was the ETN reach for me. By the vibe he gave me, JB, it was just Mason Taylor was the landing spot and Trey Harris was the landing spot. But talented dudes that, hey, I hope they get better landing spots and higher draft capital when the time comes. So now you guys leave me with a very, very tough situation here.
Easy pick here.
Mitch is saying it's an easy pick. I do not see an easy pick here.
Scroll for a while to make it an easy pick, but there's an easy pick.
Mitch, you're going to snipe me.
No, I am.
This is where, I guess, Mitch, where you said I would be trying to trade out here. I definitely would trade out, but let's just say I can't find anybody to trade.
You got to pick.
I'm just going to go with draft capital here, and I'm going to try to hope someone else really likes this guy and move him. Give me Isaiah Bond. He went in the first round. Rams are taking him. There is an opportunity there with Stafford. He's a burner. Well, he's supposed to be a burner, not what we hoped, but give me Isaiah Bond here.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. If there's a first round wide receiver, he's going to end up going in this range. So I think that's fine. I am going to be more than happy to take Cam Scatterbo. And the reason for that, he went in the fourth round to the Broncos, for anyone who doesn't remember earlier in the show. The reason why I'm doing this, it's not even that I really want him on my team. It's because there will be comments on anytime someone brings up Scatterbo, there's a comment, oh, hey, you should have drafted him earlier. Oh, hey, why didn't you draft him in the first round? Great landing spot. There are people that love him. He's a guy like George Pickens, too, where there's people who are just, there's a Pickens fan in your league. There is going to be a Scatterbo fan in your league that you're going to be able to trade him to for a lot more than whatever the 208 is.
It's probably the point in the draft where you're going to see people trying to move in or move up if somebody like a Scatterbo drops there. And this is where we start to really get into the interesting situations where you have some players still left on the board with solid draft capital, but then you have to weigh that against some of these players like Cam Scatterbo, who has an extremely juicy landing spot in Denver. So that's going to be an issue for a lot of people because everybody comes in with their preconceived notions and kind of their baseline where they have these players, and we all do it. We all look at these prospects and have our evaluations, whether it's from a film perspective or analytically, but then that carries over and the NFL might tell us one thing or, the other. And we're like, I don't know, so like It's so interesting. These back-to-back picks. Isaiah Bond, first round wide receiver to the Los Angeles Rams, 207. Very next pick, Cam Scattaboo, fourth round, Denver Broncos. That's going to be a battle that a lot of people are going to have to fight internally, if you will. So Cam Scattaboo off the board, Isaiah Bond off the board. If this draft, and this is
how it went. It's not an if.
This is how it
went. Yes.
I think
you could do it.
I think there's going to be a lot of folks that would fade this gentleman because Jonathan Mingo is still going to be in their minds. Terrace Marshall is still going to be in their minds. And that's not a comparison to the prospects whatsoever.
This is a good pick. It's a very good pick.
The Carolina Panthers in the second round going with Jaden Higgins. I know, the team there, obviously, again, speaking of the Carolina or the New England Patriots earlier, a team starving for playmakers. The Carolina Panthers, they saw a little light there last year when it came to Bryce Young. So looking to spend a second round draft pick on Higgins in the NFL draft, I'm gonna go Higgins at 209. And I know a lot of folks, they're saying to themselves probably, hey, at this point in the rookie draft, I'm not looking at wide receivers. And again, I absolutely get it, especially at Dan's point earlier where, you start getting to these wide receivers outside the top 40. It's not the best of track records. Yeah, there's hits, but the misses certainly outweigh them. But still, I like the profile on Higgins. He gets the draft capital, goes to an interesting landing spot where he can make himself available for Bryce Young. Higgins, 209. Dan, over to you.
Gets unsettling here. And I'm trying to find a guy at this point in the draft that might just land into a good opportunity, be the surprise guy. But I'm gonna go with you, Mitch, or sorry, JB, and stay with the wide receiver theme here and look at opportunity. And I'm gonna go with the New York Jets pick of Jack Beck. After Garrett Wilson, they got nobody. Like, I don't see Alan Lazard. They let him try to find himself a trade offer. It's not there. Xavier Gibson, Malachi Corley. There's nobody good in New York whatsoever. And I just think there's an opportunity here. Let him come in with Jackson Dart, and we'll see how that quarterback situation plays out. But I see Jack Beck as just a solid receiver, a solid possession receiver, former tight end, had a good Senior Bowl. I'm going to roll the dice here and hopefully draft a potential wide receiver 2 of the Jets that could get some depth in my wide receiver room on my dynasty team.
I like that a lot. Hey, for anyone who's in the comments, if you're throwing trades in there for players, tag us in the Discord. Make sure you join up. And that's the easiest way for us to hit a lot of trades and have, especially if you do it in the YouTube comments after the show's over, just throw it in the Discord and tag us on there. Use code Theory. If you do that, then we could go a lot more into detail than, talking about a veteran trade during the rookie draft. So you do that, we'll definitely help you out there. Now for my pick, I'm going to go. This is where I would probably try to trade out. I'm going to go with upside here with Dylan Sampson in the 3rd round to the 49ers. I like Isaac Guerrero. I think Dylan Sampson's better. Christian McCaffrey could come back and be the Christian McCaffrey of old, but we just don't know. The 49ers are going to draft someone because they draft someone every single year. It's going to happen. So for me, it's just one of those upside picks. There's other guys who I think could probably end up scoring more points this year, but it's just the hype that could happen with the Sampson.
I like that.
I mean, the question marks over Christian McCaffrey's health and longevity. And again, we always say longevity. It's tough to speak to longevity when you're talking about the running back position. And I'm cracking up to myself at some of these comments. Jamal says, I see Beck as Puka super light, almost homeless man.
Awesome.
Puka. So homeless Puka. That could be a nice one there. A few players on my board here that I'm looking at. Talking about upside.
It gets
and
tough here.
What was that?
I say it gets really tough here.
Because there's three guys. Man. I'm gonna go Bayshall Tootin.
Oh, of course you are.
Listen,
the most unshocking pick we've had so far.
I am not thrilled about a 4th round running back, but over recent seasons, we have found these guys that have slipped in the NFL draft. And I'm not saying Bayshall Tootin going in the 4th would be him slipping, but you see these guys that have found success, and Kyron Williams, Bucky Irving, Chase Brown, Chuba, Tyrone Tracy. So like we're seeing more and more of these guys get opportunities, and with that speed, with his high upside profile, in that Kansas City offense, yes, he's going in the 4th round, but I am significantly lower than market when it comes to Isaiah Pacheco. And obviously they bring Kareem Hunt back. Bayshall Tootin would just be an absolute injection of life and energy for this offense. So I'm going to go Tootin at the 212. Say that 5 times fast. Tootin 212, Tootin 212. I don't even know if
so we'll go through these 3rd round picks just a little bit faster, but I have a quick question for you on them. Do you think in this draft, the 2025 draft, you're going to be able to trade your 301 pick right now? Do you think you're going to be able to trade it for a 26 second? Do you think there's going to be someone that's willing to buy in at that value?
In some leagues, yeah, I do. I think there's a couple names here that somebody's just going to want to like and want to get on their roster for some reason. You got a couple quarterbacks on the board right now that might be tempting for some. So not in all the leagues, Mitch, but I think it's worth exploring, and I think there will be chances where that will happen. And just a quick note on the 2 running backs that both of you guys took. When you look at question marks within their teams and opportunity, they're good gambles. And if there was ever a year to see guys get pushed, JB mentioned 4th round value. We know this is the deepest running back class we've had in some time. So I definitely get those picks. They're good rolls of the dice. And you know what, guys? You just got to have fun on the podcast tonight here, and I'm just going to roll the dice. And at this point, I'm okay if it busts. But I just have this game against Georgia in my mind, just like C.J. Stroud had an incredible game versus Georgia. I know he had a lot more bad games than good games, but freak athlete, Georgia game film. I'll roll the dice on Jalen Monroe here. Let him just sit on my bench. Gino's not getting any younger. Put 301. Give me Jalen Monroe.
Yeah, I mean, I think him in the early 3rd is a pick that I'm going to end up having a lot of, because I just think his upside's there. I was talking in the Discord earlier about how I'm willing to buy in Anthony Richardson, right? Just with his value right now, if it's dust, whatever, but the value he's at is dust right now. So go with the upside a little bit. Here, I'm going to go with a guy I think we've forgotten about a little bit. He's going to the Cardinals. I'm not a Kyler fan at all.
I didn't forget about him. I was eyeing him up.
Well, we sure did. He's going in the 3rd round. Jalen Noel went in the 2nd round to the Cardinals. I can't let him slip. You guys let him slip. John definitely let him slip too far. So I'm going to make sure to get him off the board here to make sure he can't slide anymore.
His film reminded me a little bit of Jaden Reed. He's not as twitchy, but there's definitely a skill set there. And the reason I let him slide here, Mitch, was just I just have no faith whatsoever of Kyler Murray supporting more than 2 guys. And I think after Harrison and McBride, and we even want more out of those guys, I just don't think it's possible. I think it's a good pick if the Cardinals took him here, because what are you doing? You're setting Kyler Murray up with all the help he needs because he needs help. So, but I just struggle with fantasy production at that landing spot.
All right, at the 303, I am going to take Quinn Ewers, Seattle. He went in the 2nd round in the NFL draft. But we talk about, Dan saying Jalen Milroe freak athlete. Okay. Geno Smith not getting any younger. Okay. It's not like Sam Darnold is some world beater. And honestly, it's kind of why I went after Jackson Dart too at the 112 with Justin Fields. There was a lot of question marks there. Much like you go over to Seattle, you have Sam Darnold, that 3-year deal. Yes, but ultimately they can get out for pretty much nothing. If it might be absolutely nothing, not pretty much. So if Darnold does not come out there and produce, this is a team that took Tet McMillan in the first round in the mock draft. You pair him with JSN. You got Kenneth Walker. I'm going to give Quinn Ewers the chance here and take him at the 303.
There's one thing I can guarantee. Sam Darnold goes out there and fails. Quinn Ewers isn't going to do any better. That's my only take on this. Dan, go ahead.
But you can profit right away.
Oh, you can without a doubt.
Right away. Get him out the door, and that's fine. This isn't a excuse me. This is not like a pro Ewers take.
It sounded like it. Kind of sounded like you thought Sam Darnold wasn't going to keep the job, but Quinn Ewers is because McMillan's there.
No. No, not at all.
All right, Dad, go ahead.
No, I like JB's the theory there. And I think it was the same rationale I have of taking a Jalen Milroe. I went with the freak athlete for running ability and fantasy. Quinn Ewers, there was expectations there in Texas. It didn't all materialize this year, but it wasn't all bad either. But hey, Jordan Love went in the second round, right? Back in the day. These opportunities could present themselves with an injury, poor performance, contract runs out. There's a lot of scenarios. So I could see that. But now it comes to me, and it's like,
I appreciate it.
I got you, JB. I bust your chops a lot. I got to get your back sometimes, pal. You know what? At this point, we're going back to roll the dice and talent. And this is where I'm going to go to my notes here of talent, and let me find it here at the wide receiver position. I have this guy as an explosive playmaker, track guy, impressive Senior Bowl, and on an explosive offense. And you know what? Mitch hosed me once, so let me hose Mitch once and give me Jalen. I'm not going to repeat what Mitch put in the show notes. Jalen something Royals, baby. Put him on my roster.
So for context there, Royals going in the third round at pick 102 to the Detroit Lions. So you could say Mitch was quite ecstatic about landing Royals there, and he gets sniped.
I love Royals. Love the Lions.
Hey,
me not being able to pick him here makes me sad.
At some point, Tim Patrick's going to run out of steam or get hurt again. J-Mo's a little bit volatile.
He'll be suspended at some point. We know how this goes. Without a doubt.
Dying Ty's comment. Screw JB's tears. I need Dan's book of talent.
Mm-hmm.
That's it,
So,
Ty.
I'm stuck between two backs here. There's the back who got better draft capital, who is behind an elite playmaker. And then there's another one who got worse capital. It's behind a good playmaker that's a lot older. I am going to go with Jaden Blue. He was second round to the Eagles. He's going to be sitting behind Barkley, but we've seen how they're so run heavy that there's a chance to where he could still sneak in for a few touchdowns. He gets those early. I was starting like a lot of Ray Davis last year in leagues. Just that guy who could come in a good offense, get some play, and sometimes that's what you need late in the year. In the third round, you're going to give me the guy that's going to back up Saquon. It's kind of hard to pass that up.
There is so much contingent value and upside there.
Mm-hmm.
And Jaden Blue, again, I don't think that one actually takes place. Jaden Blue go in the second round. But again, pretending like it did, just like we're supposed to pretend like Isaiah Bond went in the first round.
Sure
did. Jaden Blue, this is another one we talk about. I said contingent upside, but let's say, look at how many touches Barkley had last year. And he's a monster. Again, not a knock on Saquon Barkley whatsoever. But if he were to miss time, are there many backs that could be in a better situation than Jaden Blue? I was hoping that would be Will Shipley, but that ship may have sailed if Blue comes in the second round, especially with Kenneth Gainwell out. So Jaden Blue. Oh man. Okay. Sorry, I'm going through some of the comments here. Oh man.
Am I back on the clock?
No, it's still John. John hasn't picked. He just gave all of the analysis for my pick after I did.
All that.
And now we're waiting for him to pick still, even though we need to hurry when we're on the clock. So, we get the show done a little bit faster.
Get over it. Build a bridge and get over it. I'm
Did he give us a lecture?
Here. Man, I'm filibustering here. Give me.
I think the clock expired and he loses his pick. That's what I think.
Give me the other back that you didn't take. And this is 4th round of the New Orleans Saints. Give me RJ Harvey. You alluded to Alvin Kamara. They're going to be looking for somebody else here. Maybe not immediately. I'm trying to put Alvin Kamara in here. Holy moly. Can I draft Alvin Kamara with the 306?
This must be a slow draft, Mitch. That's the only explanation here. Or else JB would have definitely expired.
Give me a break. So RJ Harvey, running back, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 off the board. But again, could be an interesting situation landing there for the New Orleans Saints. Yes, 4th round draft capital, but I guess that's the name of the game for me tonight. 4th rounder bust.
No, that's fair. I love that pick. Dan, you got 2 more picks to go. Do you have 2 more players you like?
I came prepared tonight, unlike JB. I'm ready to pick just like that there. All right. I think we get to these points in the draft where, hey, you don't want to get too cute. You overthink it and you lose a guy that you really want. So somebody that I was really interested in and I like went later than I would have liked in this draft, but I'm still going to bet on talent with the Stanford wideout. I may mangle the name, but Elik Ayomanor. Man, strong body and hands, smart route runner.
I hate that he slipped to the 4th round, going from possibly a top 50 pick to the 4th round. Now, Amon-Ra St. Brown went in the 4th round. How's that going? I get it. Like, that's the guy. I kind of alluded to him earlier to kick off the show, that when I mentioned somebody getting really unsavory draft capital, it was Ayomanor.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Honestly, that sucks because that's definitely the guy I was going to take next. So now that moves me. We haven't taken a tight end for 13, 14 picks here. So I'm going to go Elijah Arroyo to the Dolphins in the 3rd round. I think this is where I'm going to start hammering the rest of the tight ends, just because who knows which one of these guys is actually going to end up being good. But I think there's enough talent there. And if they have one big game, we know we can move them for a lot in Dynasty.
Yeah, the only thing, he gets drafted by Miami. We saw the Jonnu show last year. I like the pick, Mitch. It always stinks in fantasy when these guys don't go to that ideal landing spot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Sometimes you got to ignore that, though, because things change fast.
It does, without a doubt. John?
3rd round, Los Angeles Rams. Give me the speedster. I know, as Dan would say, he's a little light in the behind, but Aronde Gadsden with the 1.75 PPR. He went in the 3rd round of the Los Angeles Rams. Tyler Higbee,
not it.
Plenty on the football field, but it's time to move over. Okay.
Yep.
So let's go Aronde.
All right. Hey, anytime you take those late running backs, man, they're always worth a flyer. You just never know in the National Football League. I'm up again, and we get this late. I love rolling the dice, and I'm going to roll it one more time, and I'm going to go with a quarterback for the Steelers here. We have
2 in a row you sniped me on.
We have seen some reports, this guy's battled through some injuries, but he is really well experienced, and here's a team with just a very unsettling quarterback situation. They're probably going to land with Aaron Rodgers by default. Tyler Show, man, I just think there could be something there, and it could be a steal. Obviously, the Steelers thought well enough to take a shot at him in the 3rd round.
For me, I'm going to go with a guy that I kind of fell in love with after I saw him at the Combine. I think he showed out really well there. I'm going to go Ty Felton He went to the Jags in the 4th round. It's not that I love taking 4th round wide receivers. It's the point, where am I looking for someone that I could say, hey, can you get a 13 to a 15% target share on a team? I think he's the guy that can do it, and he has the speed to where if he ends up getting those, he's going to get you a few touchdowns as well. John,
like that.
do I finish us off with a player that was not taken in the
I was
first
just going to
round?
say, are you going to take someone who wasn't even on the board? Because there's at least 2 that probably should have been on it, in my opinion, and I guarantee you're going to pick a running back.
Yeah, the 3 running backs I still really like, but day 2 draft capital, okay, if they don't get it, but beginning of day 3 and they still don't get it, you start to ask yourself some questions. But again, I rattled through the list earlier during the show of these day 3 running backs that have produced recently. So really, I'm between Devin Neal, Ollie Gordon, DJ Giddens.
Yep.
Without knowing landing spot here, just give me the upside play. I think DJ Giddens is going to have, its sentiment is talked about a lot. Likability, however you want to look at it. You have, you talked about it with Cam Scattaboo earlier. Go on X, look up DJ Giddens. You're going to find a lot of people that are screaming from the mountaintops for this kid. So I'll round us off. DJ Giddens at pick 36 overall.
I love it for I'm not going to rattle through all the picks again, but we've always said that this is like the running back draft. And you look at it, we had, well, I can't see anymore because John changed it. I think we had 4 in the first, 5 in the second round, and another 3 in the third round. There's going to be more than that drafted once we actually see landing spots.
4, 5, and 3, yeah.
Yeah, this is the draft that we definitely need to hammer running backs. Next year's class isn't as good. And just make sure you fix your running back situation. That's my big thing. That's kind of my final take. I jumped the gun a little bit, but we'll go final take. Dan, what do you think about the draft, your first mock draft? Is there any huge takeaway you have as far as doing these?
I just think as we close this and we talk about guys still on the board, JB mentioned Ollie Gordon. You guys know I like LaQuint Allen. Mm-hmm. Hey, we get these 4th round pick. There's still some guys I want to get on my dynasty roster that really could sneak up and surprise. And it also just shows, how we are impacted by draft capital. There were some times we ignored it. There's some red flags in dynasty, some past metrics and data that we have that are red flags held. So I think all that's important. And when it comes draft night and everyone's watching the draft and, if we're on a live feed and JB's bored because O-linemen are getting drafted at that time, man, that's important too, okay? Because that's going to help a lot of those quarterbacks, running backs, and receivers. So be paying attention to those O-linemen too. And then you can just be mad when the defensive guys get drafted, unless you're an IDP, I guess.
What was the 1 year, Mitch, when we did the live stream?
Dude, it was horrible.
And there was a stretch. I was just slouched over in my chair. I'm like, oh, all right.
That was rough. John, what's your thought?
Yeah, like Dan mentioned, 4th round, there are still going to be some intriguing options. Dart throws, of course, most likely not going to be anything. If you haven't checked out Scott's most recent episode on the DD Fantasy Football YouTube channel, it's a very quick 17-minute video talking about rookie draft pick and the war associated with that. And then Mitch and I last week on Trending Fantasy, we had a good discussion about the 2025 draft picks, how we're comparing them to veterans, how we're comparing the tiers throughout the rookie draft, and then also making that comparison to 26 and 27 and the way we value. And I saw the good discussion going on in the live chat here talking about those 26 and 27 picks. But there's still juicy landing spots with like Terrence Ferguson, Seahawks, 3rd round. Xavier Restrepo, I'd be shocked if he goes in the second round to the Buffalo Bills, but that would have seemed interesting. But he's still running his 40. Harold Fanning going to the Jags in the 4th. Brenton Strange, hype train starting to come up a little bit. Wouldn't be the greatest of spots, but certainly, we'll see what happens. But like Mitch said, I think we're going to see like 15, 16 running backs go probably when it's said and done in the top 36 picks, even in 12-team superflex tight end premium drafts. And I know Dan's laughing. He's thinking, JB, this is the longest final thought. But I got a lot of thoughts, man. I got a lot of thoughts. And I got to let him go.
JB's giving us his entire draft board here.
Yep.
He didn't want to leave anybody out tonight for our listeners.
So for everyone in the chat, I want to thank you. You made it a lot of fun. Please please comment once we're done. If you have trade questions, please post them in the Discord. They're so much easier for us to go in depth. You join through the ddfantasyfootball.com. The link is in the description. Use our code Theory. It's huge. It helps everybody out, but please make sure to like it. We know how many views we get, and we know how many likes we get. So please just make sure you like if you're watching the video. It helps us out a ton. But for John, Dan, I'm Mitch, and we'll see you next week.